Hey everybody, you asked, so let's talk about some of the most toxic stories in Biglaw, which is the largest and biggest law firm industry in America. Typically a big law firm is 500 plus lawyers. You make the most money, sometimes nearly $250,000 right out of law school, but you also work the hardest, and we're going to talk about 3 stories that exemplify that in this video. Before we begin, and for those who are new here, hello, my name is Julian Sarafian. I'm an attorney for content creators and social media influencers. I'm also an advocate in the legal profession for mental health, and some would say that I'm Biglaw's #1 enemy because I constantly tear them down in social media. All right, please hit that sub button, drop a comment if you have a video idea, and let's get started. The first incredibly reasonable story from Biglaw comes from the top law firm Cravath. Cravath is a top New York firm. It remains one of the most prestigious law firms in the world. To get into Cravath not only requires that you go to one of the best law schools in America, but also that you score near the top of your class to get into that firm. Well, I have a buddy who was a summer associate at that law firm, and for your benefit, a summer associate is the position that when you are in between your second and your third year of law school, it's almost like an internship. You go to the law firm for 10 weeks, you make a lot of money. It's supposed to be easy. It's supposed to be more of testing the waters to make sure that you're a good culture fit for the law firm, not as much an experience that's supposed to work you to the bone. So it's Saturday morning at 6 a.m. and my buddy checks his email because he hears his phone go off. The mid-level associate had sent him a note saying, hey, this document came in, can you turn this? Keep in mind, for a summer associate to work on a weekend, pretty rare, but this is Cravath. You want to leave a good impression. My buddy sees the email, thinks, well, this can wait a couple hours. It's not urgent. So he goes back to sleep. He wakes up at 10 a.m., turns the document, and sends it to the mid-level associate. The mid-level associate immediately responds and says, hey, thank you for sending this, and while I appreciate that you sent this to me, you should make it a good practice to check and respond to all of your emails at 6 a.m. every day, period. So just something to keep in mind for the rest of your time here at the firm. Right, because getting something done at 6 a.m. on a Saturday when it doesn't even need to be done until the following Monday, that's totally necessary. My buddy ended up going to Cravath, and he enjoys his time at the firm, but he is working relentlessly hard every weekend, every weeknight, getting up at 6 a.m. to check his email just like was promised. All right, story number 2 comes from Skadden, which is yet another very prestigious law firm. They have offices everywhere across America and some international as well, which is different than Cravath, which is just the one behemoth office in New York City. So for this story, we're going to Palo Alto, California, at Skadden's office in the Bay Area. An associate receives an email from a partner at 2 a.m. The partner is asking the associate to do some research and finish up this memo in advance of a litigation deadline for their client. The associate is at home at the time and says, sure, I can get this done. Let me send it to you in the next 30 minutes. Keep in mind, this is 2 a.m. on a Wednesday. They're still working and they are still expected to respond and get this done immediately. The partner responds, sure, get it done, but you need to go back to the office to get this done. We don't want you to be at home doing this. You might ask, do they need to be in the office for this? Is there some special research terminal or maybe some paperwork in the office that they really need to look at? No, they don't. All of this work can be done on their laptop. But this is Biglaw, where you answer to your superiors no matter how unreasonable the ask. So the mid-level associate got in their car, drove 15 minutes back to their office, and finished up this task at 2:30 a.m. on a Wednesday because they were asked to. One thing to note, that this was before the pandemic, and since the pandemic normalized working remote in the legal profession and in Biglaw, I think some of these expectations have been tampered down. Although some firms like Skadden right now are actually mandating that employees and attorneys go back into the office, so we'll see. And last but not least, this story comes from the most prestigious law firm that exists, the law firm that Pearson Spector from Suits is modeled after, Wachtell Lipton. If you think Cravath is competitive, Wachtell even more so. They're the law firm that people often say, oh, you need to go to Harvard Law School if you want to even have a chance at getting into that shop. Not exactly true. You know, you can get in there if you're in the top 10 law schools roughly, but you need to be like the top of your class if you're not going to Yale or Harvard or Stanford. And this story takes place about 20 years ago because it was one of my law school professors who told this to us because he's the one that actually made partner at this firm. So here's what happened. He works his tail off for 8 years. He doesn't take a single vacation for 8 years. He's working probably 2,800 billable hours a year, which is the equivalent of 3,500 total hours worked, because not all time that you actually bill is the time that you work, you know, commuting time, meeting times, etc. And he makes partner. And this is it, right? This is the golden ticket at the end of the tunnel of grind that you are promised business, your entire career. He is super happy. He takes his wife on this gorgeous vacation. They go across the world. This is before cell phones were normalized in the industry and before laptops were normalized in the industry. So we're talking mid-90s. He specifically chose to go to this remote island in the tropics because it was as far away from the Biglaw world and Wachtell as possible. So he takes his wife on this gorgeous hike. They go for miles in the jungle. There's nothing around but them. It's just exactly what he wanted. And as they go back to stay in their hut for the night in this remote jungle, my professor sees the office administrator for his law firm standing outside of their hut. And he does a double take. It's like, the hell are you doing here? Am I dreaming? And the office administrator says, hey, I'm really sorry. I know you're on vacation, but we really need your expertise and help on this deal that needs to be closed. And it was cheaper if the firm just sent me out here to have you help with this deal right now and get this done than it would be to pull somebody else in and get it done that way. My professor was legitimately dumbfounded and he did the work. He got home from vacation, and less than a year after making partner at Wachtell, the top firm, arguably in the entire world, he quit. And then he became a law professor because he preferred the lifestyle. And in his words, he felt like making partner was winning a pie eating contest where the prize was more pie. And he had eaten enough pie by that point in his career. Okay, everybody, that's it for me. One caveat here is these stories are some of the most extreme that you're ever gonna hear in the industry. In reality, working in Biglaw is more or less like any other job. It's just more intense. You're working a lot more hours, and sometimes you get very toxic managers and whatnot. But my experience was not like that. You know, I worked at a West Coast law firm, Wilson Sonsini. People there were very kind. They were more like human beings, you know, than some of these Skadden, Wachtell, and Cravath characters you hear about. So don't let these stories paint, you know, with a broad brush how Biglaw is going to be for everyone or even for you, because chances are it's not going to be like that. It's just going to be a lot of work, and it could very well lead you to being miserable if you don't like it. As always, please hit that sub button. Drop a comment if you have some ideas for videos in the future, and it was great seeing you. As always, be well, take care of yourself, stay hydrated, take some deep breaths, do some stretching. I'll see you next time.